Nazi medical experiments, Germany 1939 to 1945. In Auschwitz, science became cruelty. Under orders from Heinrich Himmler, SS doctors led by Josef Mengele turned prisoners into living test subjects. Some were plunged into freezing water tanks, part of Luftwaffe survival research. Their bodies shook violently as doctors timed every heartbeat. Others were locked inside high-altitude chambers, gasping for air as pressure crushed their lungs. Some were left under scorching heat lamps, testing how long the human body could endure. Then came the sterilization experiments, radiation, chemicals, surgery, all meant to prevent undesirable births. In nearby rooms, bones were broken and limbs amputated, testing recovery without anesthesia. Mengele's most infamous work focused on twins, injecting dyes into their eyes, dissecting them to compare organs, chasing a twisted dream of genetic perfection. Most victims were Jews, Romani people, the disabled, and political prisoners. Few survived. Those who did were often sent to the gas chambers next. Every reaction, every death, every scar was recorded as data. Tables, tanks, surgical tools, all became instruments of ideology. These weren't experiments. They were acts of power disguised as science. And their shadow still reminds us, when knowledge is used without conscience, it becomes horror. Unit 731, Japan, 1930s to 1945. In occupied China, a secret facility hid behind the walls of Harbin, Manchuria. It was called Unit 731, officially the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. In reality, it was a factory of death disguised as science. Led by General Shiro Ishii, Japanese military doctors used humans as test subjects, calling them logs. No names, no rights, just data. Prisoners were infected with plague, anthrax, and cholera to study how fast disease could spread. Others were frozen solid to measure frostbite, or burned alive to record how the body fails in heat. Some were dissected without anesthesia, their organs studied as they died. Pregnant women were forced to give birth, their babies used in the next experiment. Most victims were Chinese civilians, but also Russians and Koreans. Anyone the army captured, thousands died. Their bodies burned, buried, or erased. Their suffering written down as medical notes. After the war, the horror didn't stop. Many scientists of Unit 731 were granted immunity by the U.S., traded for their biological warfare research. Justice never came. Every experiment recorded, every death documented. Unit 731 stands as proof that when ideology replaces humanity, medicine becomes murder. Tuskegee Syphilis Study, USA, 1932 to 1972. In Alabama, doctors watched men die and called it science. 399 black men were told they were being treated for bad blood. In reality, they were given false hope, free meals, checkups, promises of care. The real cure, penicillin, was withheld. The U.S. Public Health Service wanted to see syphilis run its natural course. Men suffered blindness, heart failure, agonizing death. Families could only watch helplessly. Every symptom was recorded, every decline noted. Human suffering turned into data points. The study lasted 40 years. It ended only after public outrage exposed the truth. It was betrayal on an unimaginable scale, and it left a scar on trust in medicine that still lingers today. Willowbrook Hepatitis Study, USA, 1950s to 1970s. At Willowbrook State School in New York, children with intellectual disabilities became test subjects without even knowing it. Doctors, led by Dr. Saul Krugman, deliberately infected them with hepatitis just to study how the disease spread and to test new vaccines. Officials claimed it was for their benefit, but behind closed doors, it was anything but safe. Children lay in hospital beds, vomiting, trembling, their skin turning yellow, while researchers stood by, taking notes. Parents were told the participation was required for admission. They had no real choice. Over the years, hundreds of children suffered. Their pain, their illness, reduced to data points on a clipboard. The Willowbrook study exposed a horrifying truth. Even in modern medicine, authority and deception can turn care into cruelty. Human radiation experiments, USA, 1940s to 1970s. During the atomic age, ordinary Americans became unwitting test subjects. In hospitals, universities, and government labs, patients and soldiers were exposed to radioactive materials without their knowledge, without consent. Some were injected with plutonium or uranium. Others were exposed to X-rays or radioactive iodine to see how radiation traveled through the body. Many were sick, vulnerable, or unaware. Every reaction, fever, weakness, organ damage, was meticulously recorded. Researchers claimed it was for science and national defense, to understand radiation, to protect against nuclear threats. But the cost was human. Thousands suffered long-term illness or death. The human radiation experiments reveal a chilling truth. In the name of science, authority and secrecy can override human rights. Ordinary people became living instruments of research, their suffering logged, their consent ignored. Project 4.1, Marshall Islands, 1950s. In the remote Marshall Islands, the U.S. was testing nuclear bombs. But the experiments didn't end with explosions. After the Castle Bravo test in 1954, residents on Rongelap and Uterik were exposed to radioactive fallout. Men, women, and children were examined and monitored, often without consent. Researchers measured radiation absorption, tracked illness, and documented long-term health effects. Entire villages were contaminated, food and water poisoned. The islanders became living lab subjects, their lives upended, their health jeopardized. Project 4.1 revealed a stark truth. When scientific curiosity, military strategy, and disregard for human rights collide, ordinary people can pay the ultimate price. CIAMK Ultra Program, USA 1950s to 1970s, behind locked doors and sealed files. The CIA began experimenting with the human mind. Under Project MK Ultra, led by CIA chemist Sidney Gottlieb, ordinary people were secretly turned into test subjects. Without ever knowing it, they were given LSD, hypnotized, and locked away for hours, sometimes days. Some faced sensory deprivation, others were broken down with psychological manipulation, all in the name of national security. In hidden rooms, victims hallucinated, screamed, and lost grip on reality, while agents calmly took notes. No consent, no warning, just experiments. When MK Ultra was finally exposed in the 1970s, most of the files had already been destroyed, erasing the full extent of what happened. It left behind one terrifying truth. Even in a democracy, secrecy and power can turn the human mind into a weapon. Stanford Prison Experiment, USA 1971. What happens when ordinary people are given total power? At Stanford University, a basement became a mock prison. 24 male students were randomly assigned, guards or prisoners. Guards got uniforms, whistles, and clubs. Prisoners were stripped, numbered, and confined. The experiment started as a study, but quickly spiraled out of control. Guards grew cruel, enforcing rules with psychological abuse. Prisoners broke down, crying, begging, rebelling. Dr. Philip Zimbardo, overseeing the experiment, watched as ordinary men transformed under authority. Cameras recorded every scream, every breakdown, every moment of fear. The study was meant to last 2 weeks, but ended after just 6 days. It revealed a chilling truth. Situations and assigned roles can warp human behavior. Ordinary people can become tormentors or victims almost instantly. Milgram Obedience Experiment, USA 1960s. What would you do if told to hurt someone, and there was no way to refuse? At Yale University, volunteers believed they were part of a study on learning. They were instructed to deliver electric shocks to a learner whenever a mistake was made. The shocks were fake, but felt real to the participants. As the voltage increased, the learner screamed in pain. Some participants hesitated, trembled, pleaded to stop, yet the experimenter insisted, "Please continue. The experiment requires it." Ordinary people complied, sometimes against their conscience, obeying authority, even when it seemed to cause harm. Dr. Stanley Milgram watched as human behavior warped under situational pressure. The study revealed a chilling truth. Authority can push ordinary people to commit acts they would normally consider wrong, exposing the dark side of obedience. Aversion therapy, UK-USA 1950s to 1970s. What if medicine was used to punish rather than heal? In psychiatric hospitals and clinics, doctors attempted to cure unwanted behaviors with shocking methods. Patients, often LGBTQ+ individuals or those labeled deviant, were subjected to electric shocks, nausea-inducing drugs, and humiliating procedures, all while being exposed to stimuli linked to the behavior being targeted. The goal? To condition the mind to associate the behavior with pain or discomfort. Sessions were recorded. Reactions were monitored. Progress was measured like data points. Many patients endured trauma, anxiety, and long-term psychological damage. The therapy disguised cruelty as treatment, turning medicine into a tool of control. Aversion therapy revealed a disturbing truth. Misuse of psychology and authority can transform care into punishment. Little Albert experiment, USA 1920s. A baby, a lab, fear as a lesson. At Johns Hopkins University, a boy named Albert became the subject of a controversial study. Psychologist John B. Watson and assistant Rosalie Rayner want to see how fear could be conditioned. Albert was exposed to a white rat, rabbits, and other animals. Every time he touched them, researchers made loud, frightening noises. The baby cried, froze, recoiled. Distress was immediate. Soon, Albert's fear spread to similar objects. Phobias could be learned and generalized. There was no attempt to uncondition him. The child endured lasting fear, used as a living experiment in the name of science. The Little Albert experiment revealed a chilling truth. Scientific curiosity can ignore the well-being of its subjects, turning a child's life into a laboratory case. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.